Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people. This is Marie Alessi with another episode on Unsilenced Grief. And as you can probably already see by the title, I was really looking forward to having this conversation with the lovely Pam Baker. Thank you so much for joining us today. And without further ado, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience, please. Welcome, Pam.
I've been so looking forward to this. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Pam
Same.
Baker. I live just north of Atlanta. And yeah, I've been a widow for about 3.5 years and
Mm.
have four kids that are all various ages. And that's my basic intro.
But you are at you're coming from a different space today. Where are you at
Yes, I'm
today?
in Alabama right now. Yeah, I have a lake house
Yeah,
in Alabama.
the
So yeah,
lake
we're
house. I
dealing
love
with
it.
all the time zones between us. We have like three different time zones, but that's okay. We can do
Uh, I love it. And
it.
we managed to catch up
We did.
at the
We were
same
on
time. So
time.
that's awesome. I am so happy to have you here because the title in itself, Widows Who Whine, we're going to get into that pretty soon. But before we do, I usually would say how we connected. I forgot to mention that today, but your book launcher actually connected us. So I'm really, really grateful that they reached out to me and said, "We've got this amazing woman. You need to speak to her." And we had a quick chat beforehand. I'm like, "Yeah, do I have to have you
I
on my
know.
podcast?"
I know.
I
I've
was
been so
very,
excited because I just like felt such a connection to you from the
yeah,
jump, and I've like been dying
yeah.
for today because I just want to hang out with you more.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And likewise, absolutely. Pam, are you happy to share a bit of your story? Because, obviously we're sitting here laughing and chatting, and becoming a widow is not always the happiest occasion, as most of us know. However, I think we're both on the same page to say, like, it always depends on what we make of it. That determines what our life looks like. So maybe we'll start with your story and then go into a little bit more detail about what you do. Is that okay?
Okay, that's
Awesome.
perfect.
Stage
Well,
is
I'll
yours.
just start. Yeah, I'll start from a little bit from the beginning.
Sure.
I met my husband right off freshman year of college.
Mm.
So I was 18, he was 20, the older man.
Wow.
And we started dating, yeah, like October of my freshman year. He was a junior.
Mm.
So we dated for quite a long time. My family has a history of like dating forever before getting married. So we were together for 8.5 years and then got
Wow.
married. And yeah, we were married for 24 years, all married for that long. We have four
Mm.
kids. Like I said, we have Gavin, I have 26, 23, 19, and 16. And John is like super involved in the community, did all this
Mm.
awesome dad, like did all of the coaching and did everything. In
Mm.
2018, he was getting some headaches and ultimately ended up going to the doctor to see what was going on and was diagnosed with glioblastoma, so aggressive
Mm.
brain cancer.
Yeah.
He was a super healthy guy. So it was shocking, as it always is. And he was given 12 to 14 months to live. And
Mm.
really, we just, you go into crisis mode, you go into
Mm.
flight or flight, and we just rallied and just, I always describe cancer as like learning a new language, but you're
Mm.
learning it
Oh,
under a ticking
that
time
just gave
bomb,
me goosebumps. I've never heard
right?
anybody say that. Why it is so spot on. Wow.
It is. It is. And
Yeah.
you're just like under the gun of a time bomb because you got to learn fast. You got to make decisions and clinical trials or do you do chemo or do you do this? So we were like,
Yeah.
oof, all in. And as it does, the whole entire family focus turned to John and his health. And he did amazing. I mean, he outlasted his sentence he was given and lived two very healthy years while also having
Mm.
craniotomies and chemo and clinical trials and
Wow.
doing all the things, but very healthy. And the last year though, so he made it 3 years with
Yeah.
glio, and the last year was kind of brutal. He ended up had a seizure while he was driving and got into a horrific car accident
Mm.
to make matters worse. And after that, I think that's when I say he kind of lost the fight. He lost his mental fight.
Mm.
He just declined from there. So
Yeah.
November of 2021 is when he passed. So
Wow.
um, and I'll just kind of go into that. Like it's one of those things where you know it's coming, even though you hope you're gonna beat the odds. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like living in preemptive state of grief,
Mm.
because it's kind of coming. And
It's that anticipatory grief, that's always
yeah,
very
it is.
brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like preparing for the grief, but you don't know what grief is until you get there. And trying to make sure your kids are okay and chug along. And I was trying to go to grief counseling and do all the things, and we
Mm.
can get into how Widows Who Whine came into that. But I
Mhm.
didn't find a match for me. They were all very,
Yeah.
very church-based, which work for some people, and I'm a very
They were
spiritual
all
person.
very, what, sorry?
Church-based, like
Yeah,
church,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and even the ones that didn't claim to be. And I felt like
Mm.
those groups, for me, it didn't work. They were just like
Yeah.
sitting in the grief, and it didn't feel like moving forward and learning how to live in a
Yeah.
healthy way with the grief. So
Yeah.
I hired my own grief counselor, and she's a certified coach, and work. I still work with her, actually. She's amazing.
Mm.
And I just worked through it on my own, and just
Mm.
learned how to live in a healthy way. I'd gotten very unhealthy because all of our focus went to my husband. So, you know,
Yeah.
I gained a lot of weight. I was
Yeah.
really in an unhealthy space. So
Yeah.
eventually got to a place where I could get back to taking care of myself, which was helpful.
I just got goosebumps again. Is it okay if we delve a little bit deeper into this topic? Because I feel this is the one thing that not many people talk about. The focus, as you said, is always on the person who's sick or who's dying, who needs the care, obviously, and that is how it should be. And the carer is often completely forgotten, and that's not how it should be, I believe. And I have talked with a couple of people who actually work with the carers in their coaching space, which I think is phenomenal. I just thought of one lady that I also interviewed here on Unsilence Grief who does phenomenal work in that space. And I would like to ask you, Pam, if that's okay. Can you share a little bit about when did it actually become apparent to you that you needed more help as the carer? And I know that for a fact that a lot of people in that space, when you are so immersed in this taking care of somebody, you often don't have the courage or the capacity to actually ask for help. And there's also that slight guilt or shame factor that comes in. It's like, oh, I can't make this about me because my husband's got cancer and he's the one suffering, and how dare me make this about me? And we do need that help. Can you share a little bit about that, where it became uh, where it surfaced to your conscious from the subconscious, knowing that you need help to actually really being able to voice it in your head?
Yeah, and I'm going to just take it even one tiny step deeper, because
Of
one
course.
of the things that you also, it's not just the physical health, obviously,
Mm,
it's mental and emotional health,
mm,
because you, as the caregiver, um, you're, it's so heavy. It's so heavy. And I think as women, we tend to
yeah,
carry more of it too,
yeah.
because you can't, you know, you for us, I remember feeling like I can't be mad at him right now, because what if I'm going to waste time being mad at him?
Mm,
But sometimes he was a selfish jerk, and I'm like, and I had to hold all that in, and I had to keep all of it. So all of this, like, bottling up, and just being like, oh, and you
mm,
can't do anything with that either, because you feel guilty. You feel
yeah,
like, what's the
yeah.
point of being, he's sick, he's cancer. But those are real true emotions. And I
Mm,
certainly couldn't go to him and be like, what am I going to do without you? Because I got to be the cheerleader and the
yeah.
hope-filled person. And you can't,
Plus 4 children, not forget them.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
wow.
So it takes such a toll. And
Mm,
I'll tell you, I remember I did start working out again after John passed, and it was the tail end of COVID. And so I was going to this one gym here, it's called Hot Works, and you'd go in and you're doing a workout in a sauna. And
yeah.
so, and at that time, because they still, it was max 3 people anyway, but at that time only one person allowed at a time. So I was in there by
Mm,
myself a lot, and it was a virtual coach, and
mhm,
every workout ended in a seated meditation. And and
mm.
and this one day, the virtual coach said to me, it was virtual coach, but said, uh, I want you to focus on joy. What brings you joy? And I was sitting, I'm going to start crying. I was sitting in the sauna, and
Oh,
I did start crying, because I was like, I have no joy. There's no joy in my
Ah,
life. And
I feel this so deeply. Oh my God.
yeah,
Mm,
that was like a light bulb moment for me because I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't, I can't spend my life in this state. I can't stand, I like just getting by, just surviving,
yeah.
right? And so that was the turning point for me where I was like, I gotta figure my stuff out. I
Mm,
hadn't started working with my grief coach at that point either. It was about
yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 months after John died. And I
Wow.
was like, I gotta get my life
What
together.
a moment. Pardon me while I just quickly fly to the lake house to hug you. Oh my God. I can so relate to this because joy is really something that all of a sudden drops off the surface, and you're like, where's he gone? And you don't even have the capacity to think about it in that state. And then all of a sudden somebody points it out. And I have to say, the moment that was pointed out to me the first time, and I don't know whether it came up through meditation, through myself or somebody else, but when joy knocked on the door and was like, what about me? I thought, wow, where have you been? I didn't even realize. And then I think the hardest moment for me was realizing that I didn't even know anymore what brought me joy, apart from obviously making my kids happy. Yeah, but it was about
Yeah.
them. And I'm like, what about me? I don't even know. And when somebody asked me, what do you like doing? I don't know. I was so in survival mode and protector and provider mode for my children that I didn't even know anymore what actually brought me joy. It's still a hard question for me, but I'm in this space of trying new things and learning again and bringing joy back in. So, oh, wow. So,
Well, it's
what
also
happened after that when it was pointed out by Mr. Virtual Coach?
I know. Well, and another weird complication when you lose someone, you're a widow, you question, am I allowed to feel joy anymore? Is that
Mm,
also because there's a part of it that feels like you're betraying your
mm,
person who is gone. Like I should be sad. I should be heartbroken. I should be sitting in
mm.
this space because they're gone. And if I'm happy, does that mean I'm okay, I'm
Yeah,
fine. I'm fine.
disrespectful
It's
or yeah, yeah, yeah,
mashup of,
exactly.
yeah, it's a mashup
Yeah,
of emotions that are so
yeah.
complicated. And
Mm.
I remember feeling like that being out, like when I'd first start going out in public, because you avoid the head tilt and the how are you and all of those things that drive you crazy.
I
So
shouldn't laugh, but yeah, I can still relate.
you know what I'm talking about.
The head tilt.
Um, how are you? You do all that, and I was like, I can't. I was like binging
Mm.
Netflix, sitting with my sister on the couch. That's what I did. But when I finally started going out, and I was like, I can. I did feel. It felt uncomfortable to laugh.
Mm.
Actually, it felt
Mm.
uncomfortable to feel happy, and it felt uncomfortable to be having fun because I felt. Are people judging me? Are people going to say, "Oh, I guess she doesn't miss her husband. I
Mm.
guess she's ready to go out on the town,"
Right?
And so much
Judgment, yeah.
complication, so
Mm.
much complication.
Mm.
So, yeah, so what I did next is crazy, actually. I don't even know if we talked about this when we were talking before, but I have a dear friend. His name is Bob Hope, actually. And he runs a foundation that goes to very, very, very rural Honduras. And they built a
Mhm.
school there. And it's so they do a volunteer trip, like a mission trip without the church part. It's a
Mhm.
volunteer trip. And I had the Bob had lost his wife to cancer about 5 years before John died, and John and Bob
Mhm.
were actually on some boards together and stuff. So they were
Mhm.
actually more friends. We were more of
Yeah.
acquaintances.
Yeah.
He my grief angel. He would check in on me and how are you doing and everything.
Mm.
And then he started saying, "You really need to come to Honduras. You need to come to Honduras. You need to come to Honduras." And so I finally I kept saying no, no, no. And finally one day I was like, "Okay, I'm going. I'm going to
Mm.
Honduras." I didn't know anybody, barely knew Bob, didn't even know what I was doing. I was literally in the customs line being like,
Yeah.
does anybody know? I don't even know what to put on the form. Like, where am I going? I don't even know. It was
Yeah.
crazy, so far outside of my comfort zone. But
I
little
love it.
nutshell version of this. It's a week-long trip. We went to the school the first day first full day we got there, and this man in our group who I didn't know called me over. He said, "Come meet these kids," and I went over, and he said, "This is John. My husband's name's John. This is Juan. It was Juan. It was Juan, Ivan, and Ivana, which are all forms of the name John." And
Yeah.
I was like, and it was three of them, all the things that threes symbolize. And I was like,
Yeah.
I say like that in that moment, I said, I've never been a Grinchy person, but I felt like the Grinch, on the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, because I felt like my heart grew 3 sizes that day, where I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is it. This is my
Mm.
path back. This is my path back to joy. So I literally went on that trip searching for joy, searching for my path back. And it turned me around for sure. Mhm.
I love this so much. And I love when there is this guidance coming in and you don't even know why you're going, but you have to be there. And then all these signs happen to give you the proof that you're in the right space. And I just love this. And I think, well, I know from the last 6.5 years I've been working in this space now, that joy is really something that we need so deeply. And most people don't know where to get it from, how to get it back into their life, how to allow it into their life and feel that guilt, shame. Am I even allowed to have that? And I always say to them, just role reversal this and step into the space of love. And I truly believe, and I know that everybody's got different spiritual beliefs, but I truly believe that our loved ones, when they pass over, they're in this space of unconditional love. So I always say, from the space of love, look at you and ask yourself, is this person allowed to have joy? Big freaking yes. How can
Yeah,
it be a no from the
everybody.
space of love? Of course, you want your person to be happy. And I mean, Rob and I were lucky enough to have the what if conversation 3 years prior to his passing, because in my case, or in Rob's case, I should say, he passed very sudden. We didn't have any time to prepare for his passing. Yet, in hindsight, I think we had that with our what if conversation. What would you want to do if something was to ever happen to us? That was caused by a fatal accident. He was driving past, that conversation. I don't think that anything ever happens without purpose, without reason. When you look back in hindsight, people always say nothing prepares you for that. And I was like, let's turn
Yeah.
around and look at the timeline and see all the experiences that you had that brought you to today. How have they equipped you to walk forward with this? And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you find all these little hidden gifts in adversity that have brought you to who you are today. And it gives me goosebumps every time. You always think you were not prepared for that, but then I'm always like, well, weren't we? I am absolutely certain I was prepared for that without even noticing or realizing. And then when I was there, I felt this guidance.
Mhm.
And with that, I'd like to ask you how you went from the Honduras trip to starting Widows Who Whine. Because that to me, I love
Widows
your
for
journey. I
wine.
really have to say
Yes.
that, and I know you get it the right way when I say that. Yeah, share, please.
I will, because it was like I said, I could not find the grief space that worked for me, or the widow space really.
Yeah.
And so I just did my own thing and locked in and started healing myself. And where I live, there's a Facebook page. It's like 9,000 women on it. It's called the Roswell Moms Network. And I
Hmm.
live in Roswell. My town is Roswell. And so people would inevitably, there'd be somebody that my mom lost, my dad died, my best friend's husband died, and they'd
Yeah.
post, they need resources. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any suggestions? And every
Mm.
single time it was those same grief groups. And then just it happened to be, it was January of 2023. So John died in November of 2021. So just about
Mm.
a year,
A
a
little bit.
little over.
Yeah.
Somebody posted again, and she was a young woman. She said, "I lost my husband. Are there resources out there?" Same thing. And I don't know. I was again, I say I get messages from the universe. I'm like, please keep me
Hmm.
open to them. And I don't know. I felt so compelled in that moment. I was like, there has to be other options out there. Like there
Mm.
has to be something else for the people who need something other than
I
just getting
love
me
it.
keep giving you. And so I get these things in my brain and I can't stop. I'm like obsessed. And so I'm like, it has to have the right name because it has to give the right connotation. And I don't want it to be a grief group. We'll support each other through grief because it hits and when it hits and we don't know when it's going to hit. But the point isn't a grief group. The point is to be around people in a shared experience who aren't going to head tilt you and are just going to be cool. And we'll all find our way to joy together. And so I just literally within, I don't know, it was about 48 hours. I came up with the name and I was like, "Ah, that's it." And so February 2nd, um, I I put on my Facebook and the Roswell Moms, I said, I am hosting a social for widows called Widows Who Whine. And if anybody wants to come, come to my house. And I had no idea. Like, I would not have gone to anybody else's house. So it's a miracle that anybody showed up, but 14 women showed up. And we
I
kind of
love it.
all knew of each other. Some people knew of each
Yeah,
other. We had acquaintances, but and it was torrential, horrible weather. It was a miracle. Anybody showed up. So 14 women showed up. And so I decided I was going to plan a social event once a month. I'll come up with something fun. So we've done axe throwing, very popular with, by
love
the
it,
way.
love it.
Very popular. And pottery and wine tastings, and I'll sprinkle in some educational. I did a home maintenance 101, so we could all be educated on how to take care of our houses,
Love
and a
it, love
planning
it.
101, and just
Yeah.
fun educational things too. And so now, 2 years, yeah, 2 years later, we in February, it's 2 years, we have about 350 women in it locally. And it's awesome. So then I've had all these people reaching out to me over the last couple of years, like, this is so cool. Is there anything like this
Mm,
in Oklahoma or Philadelphia or New
mm.
York? And so that got me thinking, how I can't be in all those places. How can I do this?
Franchise
And
it.
yeah, well, I actually went with the app development. I hired an app developer and I was like, here's my idea and what can we do? And so we built this app, and it's funny because at that point I hadn't started dating at all. And it's built just like a dating app, which I didn't even know because
Hmm.
I'd never been on one, but it's built like a dating app. So you build your profile and you do your
Hmm.
interests, and this is how clueless I am. I'm talking to the app developer guy, and I'm like, those little things that can tell you, like, uh, it follows you where you go, like travel mode, and so I can be in a thing and be like, is there
I
anybody
love
within
it.
this radius? It locks in, and he was like, yeah, we can do that. Okay, I got you. So
Awesome.
yeah, so wherever you are, and so it's softly launched. I'm
Hmm.
a little bit of a perfectionist, so I keep tweaking things without putting it fully out there, but it's in all the app stores and everything, and
Yeah.
I just haven't fully published it. But yeah, my hope is
So
like
what's
I
the
can.
app called? The same
It's
thing?
it's actually called Widows Who Whine.
Widows Who
Yeah.
Wine. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the idea, is like if I go travel anywhere, LA, London, Australia, I can be like, oh,
Hmm.
I wonder if there's widow events, and pull it up and just go, like, have immediate friends. And
You know I
you
have to
know,
join now, right?
you do. You can be my first international person. I have
I
Canada,
will
but
be.
that's all right.
Joining
It's
today.
crazy. Oh yeah. I have this perfect example of this story. So all these offshoots. So it's not just one thing a month now, because
Mm.
I tell the women, this is your group, do what you want. So there's a
Yeah.
book club, there's mahjong, there's a widows who golf, there's widows who cornhole, there's widows who dine, widows who movie. There's all these things, which is awesome.
Wow.
And I try to go to all of them.
Mm.
And I was at book club one night, and this woman walked in, she was brand new, and she walked in and just started crying. And so I went up to her and I'm like, well, okay, talk to me. What's going on? What's happening? And she said, I have been a widow for 10 years, and this is the first time I feel like I can breathe.
Oh my God.
I know. I
Wow.
was like, oh,
Oh
okay.
wow.
There's just no space for us in the world. And
Amazing.
it's that shared experience, and just being able to just be with people who get it. Just be
Yeah.
with people.
Gold. Yeah.
So it's been awesome.
It's just so beautiful. I love this because, when I first started in this space, I started this group called Loving Life After Loss. That was, the title of my first book, and that got me into that space. So, when you get your message out there, it is just so beautiful how it attracts the right people who want that. And I thought, with a title like that, Loving Life After Loss, I only attract people who actually want to love life after loss and not
Yes.
go into this traditional, heavy, sitting in this
Yeah, the
muddy
episode.
puddle, I want to call it, like, and that is with no disrespect,
Mhm.
absolutely no disrespect, but I know that a lot of us, I want to say, if that's okay, in that space, being a widow, are looking to love life again, and even, the title "Widows Who Wine" is already suggesting, let's have a glass of wine together, let's I love that word play that you have, the, the whining
Yeah.
and wine. It's just so perfect. I almost regret that we're not a little bit closer. we
Oh,
need to
I would
we need to
totally
have a
want to have
glass
a
of
glass of
vino
wine with you.
together. Yes, absolutely. But I just absolutely love what you have created, because this space that you have created really feels so inviting and it feels light. And that's exactly what I feel we need in that space, because the traditional heavy space of grief doesn't have to stay heavy. I find so many people come from that perspective of grief stays with you forever. I know that the opinions are very split on that. Most people believe in that. I don't. I treat grief like a visitor. I'm always very loud about that. I don't treat grief like something that is always with me. No, it's like every other emotion, although grief is certainly a very specific emotion. No emotion stays with you all the time, 24/7. And if it does, I think there's also a decision that you need to make if you want that, actually. And a lot of
That's
people will go like,
such
oh, I could choose that. Yes,
yeah,
you can. With
yeah.
every decision, you can actually, with every emotion, you can make a decision if you actually want that ongoing in your life. Like with joy, I made the decision I want more joy in my life, because I'm like, where has he gone? I
Mm.
was so in this space of protector, provider for my boys, which I wholeheartedly embraced and loved. And I was missing joy. See, the simultaneous thing, like that part, like everything can happen simultaneously. That is a message that I find very, very important, especially in the grief space. How did you address that in your widows who whine meetings? Do you talk about these things? Is that something that
Yeah, there's so much. I have I could tell stories from the women in my group forever, because one of the
mm,
things I found is I feel like um I refer to widows as being like the forgotten ones, you know.
mm,
It's like the vision of what a widow is, the little old lady sitting on the front porch, and
dressed in black?
yeah, and just
Mm,
like sitting in a rocking chair. They had so many great years together, and she's just kind of whiling her time away. There's no system
mm.
in place for widows. There's not. And you can even use
So
the example
true.
of, you talk about women. We've had dating workshops for widows. These widows, they haven't flirted or dated or anything in
Mm,
decades. Some
yeah.
some of them 40 years. And there's no resources. They don't know how to use an app. I say we, there's no, I was started reading the relationship books. I'm like, these relationship books don't pertain to me, because I haven't
Mm,
been making bad decisions my whole life. I'm not trying
yeah.
to find
Yeah.
one. I found him, and then he died. So how,
Mm,
it's so there. I feel like there's just no systems in place for widows. So
mm,
that's why I think so many widows get stuck. And I
mm,
see it. I have so many stories, like with one woman in particular I'm thinking of. I always share this story. I remember the first time she came to, because I'll do like once a quarter, I do a new member thing where people do just get to share their story and get to know
mhm,
one another. And she was like a deer in the headlights, and she is this big, beautiful, tall,
mm.
like gorgeous woman. And she said, I'm a shell of a person. I wander around my house. I've been wandering around my house aimlessly for 2 years. And fast forward, like, I don't know, maybe it was a year later, uh, she shows up at book club. She's got like this vibrant tropical shirt on. I was like, girl, like your energy is popping right now. It's so good. And she was
Love
like,
it.
I just got back from Denmark. I'm traveling. I'm doing that. I'm so happy. I was like, you were like
Love it.
transformed. I feel like she was stuck and didn't see a path out of it, and there wasn't the support system. The grief groups aren't going to do that. Your single friends are too busy talking about how much they hate their exes, and your couple friends are going on being couples.
Mm,
It's a
yeah,
weird space of awkwardness. So
it is.
I like to say with Widows Who Whine, it's kind of my branded tagline is like, you find the best
Mm,
friends you never knew you needed. And because they
mm,
become your people, your tribe, your sisters,
love it.
because we all get it. We all get it, and we just are happy. Yeah. And it's good.
I just want to say, I hope that comes across the right way, but I really felt that in my heart. I want to say, in behalf of all the widows out there, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you have created. It brings so much lightness into this space, and this is why you and I are so aligned. I love who you are. I love what you do. I love what you're creating, that space. And we are a little bit over time already, but I just want to ask you one last thing. If people listening to this just take one single thing away from that, and I actually would like for you to address that to those who are looking at widows from that old-fashioned perspective, what would you like to say to them to shift their perspective a little bit and open their mind and heart to a new pathway or perspective?
I know exactly what I want to say because I feel like people look at widowhood as an ending. Your your life is ended. You know, your
Mm,
future has ended, and people think of it as being like at the end of your life. It's the end, right? Like we said, that visual.
yeah,
And for
yeah.
so many of us, it's in the middle of our lives. We're midlife, and it doesn't matter if
Yeah,
you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. You're still midlife. You still have so much life to live. And so I think that one of the biggest things that people can do with any widow they know in their life and with one another is look at it as a beginning. It's a new chapter. It's a
yeah,
rebirth.
yeah.
Like I say, widows, people think of widows and feel sad for them and pity them, and us, I should say us. They
Mm.
pity us and feel sad and feel bad and don't know how to talk to us. But guess what? I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but I say widows are badass because we've made it through
Love it.
something horrible and
Yeah.
we are here and we've survived it and we still have so much to give. So support us in the rebirth. Don't tuck us away as the end,
Love,
support
love,
the rebirth.
love it. I love this so much. And I love that you said them because it's almost like you're not associating with the term widow, and I'm the same. And yeah, it is us, but it is that new us and that new, the new way of living your life and opening your heart to that. I cannot thank you enough for being here, especially for that very last message that you put out there. I loved everything about this conversation, absolutely, wholeheartedly. And we will be sharing all the links in the show notes. So please come back because I can only add them once the interview is finished. Please come back, have a look at the show notes, and we'll be sharing how you can connect to Pam, how you can find out about Widows Who Wine maybe in your area, how you can find the app. So check out the show notes, and thank you, thank you, thank you for being here today, Pam. I loved having this conversation with you. So
Thank you so
have a
much for
beautiful
having me.
day.